All right, hi. In this video, I'm going to go over the answers to our trig review. So let's take a look at this first one. Basically, in all of these, we're trying to find x and y. So let's take this first one. Let's try to find x. So x is the adjacent side. It's next to the 30. We have the hypotenuse, so that's going to be cosine. So cosine of 30 degrees is equal to adjacent. So x over the hypotenuse, which is 10. So um, to get the 10 or to get x all by itself, you need to multiply both sides by 10. So that's going to give you 10 cosine 30 is equal to x. Put that into your calculator. 10 times by cosine of 30, you get 8.7. Uh, Next, to do the y, so that's going to be sine because it's opposite from the 30-degree angle. So that's going to be sine of 30 degrees is equal to y opposite over hypotenuse. Again, just like before, we gotta get y all by itself, so we're gonna multiply by 10, multiply by 10, so it's gonna give us 10 sine 30 is equal to y. Plug that in, you're gonna get that y is equal to 5. Okay, next one over here, let's try to get x. So x is the adjacent side again, because it is next to the 50-degree angle. So that is going to be cosine. So cosine of 50 degrees is equal to adjacent, so x over the hypotenuse, which is 100. Again, get x by itself, you're going to multiply both sides by 100. So you're going to get that 100 cosine 50 is equal to x. And 100 times by cosine 50 is going to give you x is equal to 64.3. And then let's do y. So y is the opposite because it's the furthest away from the 50. I'm going to go ahead and use the adjacent again. So that's going to be sine. So sine of 50 degrees is equal to y over 100. Multiply both sides by 100. That's going to give me 100 sine 50 is equal to y 100 times by sine of 50, 76.6. So y equal to 76.6. Okay, moving along, we have these down here. So in this case, it's giving us this lower angle down here. Still have the hypotenuse, still looking for the legs of the triangle. So that's still going to be x and y. So, however, what's going to happen is if we note in this case, because we're given this angle with respect to the vertical, it's now like when we go to find x, x is now the opposite because it's the farthest away from the angle. So I'm actually going to use sine to find x. So that's going to be sine of 25 degrees is equal to x divided by 40. Just like before, we multiply by 40, multiply by 40. And so what we notice that happens is that 40 sine 25 is equal to x. So, right, so far you might be seeing a pattern that like, oh, x is always cosine, x is always cosine. And while that is often true because we're given the horizontal, right, the angle with respect to the horizontal, in this case, because we're given the angle with respect to the vertical, um, right, it's going to turn out to be backwards. So just pay attention to that. Make sure you don't just get into the habit. What is okay is to start to get into a habit of like, okay, I have the hypotenuse and I'm looking for um, the leg. It's just going to end up always being the hypotenuse times by sine or cosine of the angle. So you could start to skip this upper step right here if you wanted to. Um, and just do the second one, and that's fine, much more efficient that way. Just keep thinking about whether it's sine or cosine. Okay, so 40 sine 25 should give you 16.9. And then let's do y. So y is going to be cosine because it's adjacent to this 25-degree angle. So it's going to be cosine 25 is equal to y divided by 40. Multiply both sides by 40 again. And that's going to give you 40 cosine 5 is equal to y. 40 times by cosine 25. It's going to be 36.3. Oh, sorry. Fell off the paper. 36.3. All right. So let's do this one. Okay, so this one's different because you're given a leg. So this one is a different triangle. The patterns that we've been seeing might not apply in this case. So um, we'll just end up starting from scratch. So we have the adjacent side, right? This is the adjacent side. And this is the opposite. So we're looking for the hypotenuse and we're looking for the opposite. So because I have these two, that's actually going to be tangent. This is going to be the first one where we've had to use tangent. Tangent doesn't come up very often. There's more than one way to do this. You could find the hypotenuse and then just use sine as well. That would work. I'm going to go ahead and use tangent just because we haven't used tangent. So tangent of 40 degrees. Tangent is opposite over adjacent, so that's going to be x over 20. And so 20 times a tangent of 40 is equal to x. So 20 times my tangent x is equal to, that's going to give you 16.8. And then to do this one, that's just going to be cosine because it's right adjacent and hypotenuse. So what did I just say? Cosine. Cosine of 40 degrees is equal to adjacent over y, right? Be careful now, it's backwards this time because we don't have the hypotenuse. So what that means is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to multiply y over, right? Just follow the algebra steps. So that's going to give you y times by cosine of 40 degrees is equal to 20. Okay, we're trying to solve for y, so now I'm going to divide both sides by cosine. So that's going to give me that y is equal to 20 divided by cosine of 40, and 20 divided by cosine 40. So you do have to be careful in this case, right? Sorry, 26.1. 26.1. In this case, right, is real backwards. So you want to be a little bit careful in that, right? Those patterns I was talking about earlier, where you could just go, oh, I have the hypotenuse, I'm looking for the legs, so it's just going to be 40 sine 25, and that's great. I actually encourage you to be able to make those connections and just basically start at this step right here. But you do need to be kind of aware enough to be like, oh, wait a minute, I have the leg of the triangle. Now I'm looking for the hypotenuse. That's going to change things. And for me, I go right back to this step, right? So I would start at the very, very beginning, just to make sure that I get everything right. So, you know, so yeah. So that's that page one. Let's go ahead and look at page two. So in this case, right, we're looking for the angle. So we have we have two sides of the triangle. We're looking for the angle. We have, this is the opposite, right? 10 is the opposite, 30 is the hypotenuse. So that's going to be sine, because sine has the opposite and the hypotenuse. So sine of theta, right? I don't know what theta is, so I leave it there, is going to be equal to 10 divided by 30. So um, so sine theta is equal to 10 divided by 30 is 0.3. So what I have to do is I have to inverse sine both sides. So do that to that side to undo this, to undo the sign. And if I inverse sine one side, I have to inverse sine the other side as well. So that's got a little negative sign, -1 here. It's hard to see. If you inverse sine a sine, you end up with just theta, and I end up with -1 on that side. And so just type that into your calculator now. Inverse sine of 0.3 is going to give you 17.5 degrees. There we go. This one, similar process, except this time we have cosine because we have the adjacent. So cosine of theta is going to be equal to 12 divided by 18. 12 divided by, oops, 12 divided by 18 is 1/3, it's 0.66. So cosine of theta is equal to 0.67. Again, right, you have to uncosine the cosine. So that is an inverse cosine. So we inverse cosine that side. We have to inverse cosine this side because of how algebra works. And so that's going to give us theta is equal to the inverse cosine, 0.67. That should give you 48.2-ish, I think. Oh, wait, it's 47.9, sorry. 47.9. I don't know, somewhere in that range. It depends on where you round the 0.67. So, all right, moving on to these guys. So for these ones, it is a vector, and they've only given you, right, which basically is the hypotenuse of your triangle, because this is what we're going to be really using this kind of stuff for, is that you're going to be given a force vector, and you're going to need to break that force vector into its pieces, to horizontal and vertical pieces. So basically, we're going to take these and break them into a horizontal piece and into a vertical piece. So for the horizontal piece, that's just going to be, so we'll call that one X, and we'll call this one Y. So now it's the same process as we had before, meaning, thinking back to problems 1, 2, and 3. So to make things a little bit faster for X, because we're starting to see the pattern here, I have the hypotenuse, I'm looking for the legs. I'm just going to go ahead and go straight to X is equal to 15 cosine 35. And I'm going to go straight to that step because, you know what, I'm just going to use red for both of these because it stands out so much better. 15 cosine 35. And so I can just type that straight into my calculator, 15 times by the cosine, and that's going to give me 12.3, and do the same for y. Y is equal to, y is going to be the sine, so it's going to be 15 times y sine of 35. So y is equal to 15 times y plus sine 5, 8.6. This one, same deal. We're going to break it into an x piece and a y piece. The horizontal piece and the vertical piece. Same deal. I'm just going to go ahead and go straight to the thing because I have the hypotenuse of the triangle. I'm looking for the leg of the triangle, so that's just going to be cosine. Let's shoot. Of course, x is equal to 60 cosine 30. It's going to give you 51.96, so 52. And y is going to be the cos or the sine, so that's going to be 60 sine 30, which is going to be equal to 30. Sine of 30 is 1/2. So there we go. There's that one. Here's this one. So we got 32, and they give you an angle with respect to the horizontal there, or with respect to the vertical. Again, we just draw it down, draw over. So right now we got our triangle. So if we're trying to find, we got our x, we got our y, we have for x, that's actually going to be sine because it's the opposite. So um, x is equal to 32 sine 20 because it is opposite from the 20. So another one of those instances where sine is going to be, or sorry, x is going to be sine. 32 times by the sine 20. It's going to give you 10.9. And y is going to be equal to, let's see here, 32 cosine 20. That's just equal to 30. All right. One last page here, one last problem. Oh, number 10. So, right, you pull the wagon to the right, the handle makes a 40-degree angle to the ground. You pull with a 30 Newton force. A Newton is a unit of force. How hard horizontally are you pulling to the right? So it's asking basically how much is your pull to the right here? I mean, obviously this is a triangle, but I don't care about the vertical. I only care about the x here. So x would be equal to 30 cosine 40. So 30 times by cosine of 40 is going to give me 23. It's 22.98, but right, that's going to round to 23 newtons. So that means I'm pulling to the right with 23 newtons. Okay, so now it says your little brother grabs hold of the back and pulls to the left with 10 newtons. What is the total horizontal pull? Okay, so basically, right, I'm pulling to the right with 23 newtons, which is what we just found here. My brother is pulling to the left with 10 newtons. So what's the total horizontal pull? Right, the total is my force, my 23 Newton force to the right minus my brother's 10 Newton force to the left. So the total is 23 minus 10 equals 13 newtons. Oh, there we go. Almost ran out of room. So there you go. Hopefully that makes sense. Basically, right, your little brother is canceling out 10 of your pull, right, of your 23 pulls. So you're left with only 13 to the right. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't, and thanks for watching.